Hey everyone, Charlie Morgan here and welcome to another video. So in today's video, I want to talk to you about something called action brackets, okay? And these are really important to understand if you are embarking on an entrepreneurial journey, especially if you're still getting started or if you're below six figures, okay? Now, what I mean by action brackets is to achieve a goal, we have to take an action, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. A goal is an effect, and to have effect, we have to have cause, right? And so when you take an action to grow your business or grow yourself or try to manifest a new future for yourself, we are creating causes which in time show themselves and produce effects, if that makes sense. Now, understanding which effect you want is the most important thing to do if you're starting out to begin with, right? Because you need to understand what your goal is. If you don't have a goal, then it's crazy. It's kind of be like starting a business without a goal is like going to the airport without a plan as to where you want to go, and then you get on a random plane, and then over time you enter this trajectory and you end up in like Namibia or something, and then you're like, why am I in Namibia? And then you get angry, but you didn't really think it through or plan it. That's basically what happens if you don't like plan or have a goal. And you see this happen to people all the time, like billions and billions of people who start life and they don't really have a plan or a trajectory. They don't understand something called the law of sensitive dependence on initial conditions, which is the idea of the butterfly effect, which basically means that the actions we take today have second order consequences and unfold over this trajectory of time, which has a huge impact in 20, 30 years. But you need to understand what effect you want, which cause you want, right? Which effect is the goal. So let's say that your goal is to get to seven figures, right? 100,000 a month. Now, the thing here is that once you've understood your goal, you need to understand that your goal is going to be a byproduct, okay? It's a production, it's an effect of a cause. The biggest mistake that people make is they just think that like if they focus relentlessly on the goal, then they will get that goal. But the problem with that is that it's not focusing on the goal that gets you the goal, it's focusing on the action that underpins the goal that produces the goal, if that makes sense. So this is really important to understand. Because I see a lot of people who put their entire emphasis on getting to 10K a month or 50K a month or 100K a month, right? And I was guilty of this before we started. And the problem with that is that when you're so focused on the goal, you sort of forget what you have to do to achieve the goal. Now, you want to have it in the top of your mind, in the back of your mind. You want to sort of have a direction and a trajectory that you're looking for. But like if you don't focus on the cause, then you're not really going to get anywhere, right? It's all good and well to sort of sit down and come up with this extensive plan as to how you're going to get to six figures or how you're going to get to multi-six figures, which is where we're at, for example, with our business with Imperium. So we've been running Imperium now for about 9 months, and we're sort of at that sort of mid multi-six figure mark. And like we had this plan to get to mid multi-six figures over the course of 12 months. But what we did is we had that goal, we set it, we knew it was possible, we believed we could achieve it, and then we sort of scaled it back and we brought our way all the way back to today and the action we had to take today to achieve that goal. So going back to what I was saying, that's sort of the philosophy of cause and effect and how it sort of manifests itself and how you need to be conscious of that stuff. You need to stop focusing on your goal, instead focus on the action that produces that goal. If you focus on cause, then you will get effect. If you focus on effect, then you won't take cause because you lose sight of what you're doing. So what do I mean by action brackets, right? So what you want to sort of understand is that in order to achieve different levels of income, you have to take different actions. Okay, so now we understand that goals are basically effects. They're snapshots of the future or a future that we want. And we know that different effects have different causes. So the actions that you take to get to 10K a month will not be the actions you take to get to 100K a month. Or they might be the same actions, but just multiplied by 10 or given more time, if that makes sense. But one of the mistakes I see people making is they're taking advice on how to get to 100K a month when they haven't even got to 10K a month. And this is a big problem, right? Because what I mean by action brackets is I want you to imagine, right, that you've got you've got these brackets of income, right? So this could be six figures, this could be multi-six figures, and this could be seven figures, and then over here we've got 8 figures. Now, there's obviously lots of places that you can get advice and support, and people can tell you, for example, you're here on YouTube watching a video on, action brackets and stuff. But what you've got to realize is that if you're at zero, or let's say you're at 0 or 10K a month, right? There's a specific set of actions you take and problems you have to solve to get from 0 to 10. And then there's another brand new set of actions that you have to take to get from 10 to 50. and a brand new set of actions you have to take to get from 50 to 100. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they're at 0 and they're doing actions to try and get to 100 instead of focusing on 10. And sometimes you even want to focus on 1,000 a month. So if you haven't got any clients at the moment, or let's use appointments, for example. Let's say right now you're booking, I don't know, like a meeting a week, right? Which is terrible, it's poor, that's not good. And you think, okay, I want to have 100 meetings a month. That'd be great. I want like a meeting a day, Monday through Sunday, I'll do them all. 3 meetings a day, I want 100 meetings a month. The problem with that is it paralyzes you, and it's kind of, you have to figure out how to get a meeting a day before you can figure out how to get 5 meetings a day, before you can figure out how to get 10 meetings a day, right? And you need to sort of, if your like sight on your goal is so far away from where your current situation is, you'll paralyze yourself, or you'll believe you can't actually do it, right? So here's a prime example of this. One of the mentors I follow quite closely runs an 8-figure consulting business, and he's a huge advocate of basically not having any apps on your phone, never using your phone, or not having anything like that. And the issue that I had when I was following his advice is I thought, okay, I'm going to remove my phone, I'm going to leave it miles away from me, which is actually a good thing to do. But what happened is I wanted to do outreach on my phone, and I wanted to have, and he was like, don't have notifications on, don't check your phone, you need to not have nothing to do with it. But the issue I had is that I was like, okay, I need to be on my phone to do outreach. But then I sort of thought, well, what do I know? Like, who am I to question my 8-figure mentor? And I've spent, $6,000 on his course, I should just get rid of my phone. And then, but what I realized is you get rid of your phone when you're doing like 200 to 300K a month, and you've got people to use the phone for you, if that makes sense. And so what you want to do is when someone gives you a piece of advice, or when someone gives you an action or a cause that you can apply to your life to change your situation, you want to sort of look at it in this sort of bracket format and think, okay, where is this action designed to get me? And is it necessary or relevant for me to take it yet? Because if you can't distinguish between what actions are relevant to your current situation, what's going to happen is you're going to completely paralyze yourself, and things are going to be all over the place. Okay, for example, a primary example of this in the agency space is hiring a sales rep. The only time you should hire a sales rep is when you haven't got enough time to do more sales calls because you're already doing so many sales calls. But I see a lot of people advocating for hiring sales reps or outbound appointment setters when they haven't even got the ability to do the sales calls themselves or the volume to even warrant hiring a rep. But you hire a rep when you need a rep, and when you need a rep when you haven't got enough time to do more sales calls. But the problem is that there's a lot of people give actions without providing any sort of context, if that makes sense. So if I was on this channel and I said, yeah, you've got to hire a sales rep to grow your agency, what I haven't told you is it's relevant for you to do that if you're doing like 30 or 40K a month. Then you hire a sales rep. But if you're getting started and you're not actually in like deep sales territory yet, then it doesn't make any sense, okay? And this is a huge issue when it comes to like information everywhere. Because there's all sorts of like books you can read and YouTube videos you can watch and podcasts. I mean, we're drowning in content and information, there's no doubt about it. But being able to critically think about what you're being told to do and apply it and think, oh, is this actually what I need to do to get to my goal? Then that's important. Now, what I want to do now is share with you all you need to do in your current situation to get to multi-6 figures in your agency, for example. So that's where we've been with our agency, we sort of scaled out there, and now we're sort of way beyond that. But if you're in a position where, like, if you're at 0, or if you're doing a few $1,000s a month, you're what I call a glorified freelancer. You haven't really got an agency, you're just chaotic, which is fine, you can get out of it. But wherever you are, you want to sort of think, okay, what's my long-term goal? I want to get to 100K a month. That's the goal. That's the standard that I want to achieve in 5 years, right? And trust me, don't set 100K a month in a year. It's freakishly impossible, because in order to get to 100K a month, you have to transform yourself into the person that's capable of doing that, right? And that takes a long time. If you're 20 years old and you suddenly decide you want to get to 100K a month in your business, then you have got to undo 20 years of behavioral and mental conditioning to wipe the slate clean mentally, rechange your paradigm, completely root out all of your negative and limiting beliefs, and then replace them with ones that suit your goal. And that takes way more than a year to do, trust me, right? It takes a long time. So that's a limit. But go back to what I was saying earlier, right? So what actions do you need to take right now? Well, it's pretty straightforward. You just need appointments, right? If you are not in a position where you're comfortable with your agency, or you're not making enough money, or you're not hitting your goals, all you need is more appointments. Appointments are like, they're like oxygen. I want you to imagine if you start an agency and you are like, you've got to imagine you're like a deep sea diver, right? And you're going all the way down with your oxygen tank. Now, the oxygen tank to the diver is what your calendar and appointments is to the agency owner. If you do not have appointments, you will die. You will suffer immeasurably and you will be perished, and nobody will even remember you were there because you won't make a huge dent. And so when you're in the position where you're not where you want to be, all it takes is more appointments. How do we get appointments? Well, we do outreach, right? Now, chances are you might be doing outreach, but it might not be working. So then like, well, what do I do then? How do I fix that? Well, you test, you introduce new variables, right? There's this really cool principle in science called ceteris paribus, which is Latin for every variable remains the same except one. And so that's the principle you want to apply to appointment booking. Okay, so that's a piece of advice that you can apply to your current situation regardless of where you are. Because if you're testing more than one variable at once, it's going to be chaos. So, this is something really important, because if you don't, like I said before, if you don't understand how these action brackets work, what's going to happen is you're going to be trying to partake in 7 or 8 figure behavior when you haven't even got to 5 figures or 6 figures, right? And so you've got to realize is that as you grow as an individual, as an entrepreneur, you sort of you scale your mindset and yourself and your skill set and your beliefs and your character. It scales horizontally and vertically, right? You go up and you go out, but you need to sort of start here, right? So if you're at 0 and you want to get to 5K a month, then there's a couple of behaviors and a couple of causes you've got to put into motion to get to here at this level. And then once you get to 5 figures, you want to get to 6 figures, and then there's a few causes and behaviors you have to put in here, and then you end up here. And then if you want to get to 7 or multi-6 and then 7 and 8, like I'm not at 8 yet. I've got a long way to go between 7 and 8. It's a huge difference. But the problem is that like if you're at 0 and you try and do 8-figure behaviors or 7-figure behaviors, you haven't got this here. There's no foundation built on this. And so the behavior you do here is completely useless, because behaviors stack on each other and causes are deeply interrelated and interconnected, and they have to sit on each other. It's like sort of like building like a puzzle almost, or what like it's like building like a Jenga tower or something. You start by the bottom and you layer it up and up and up, and it's just like that when you're trying to figure out what behaviors create the result. So the cool thing about this is that like if you want something, all you have to do is figure out what causes it, because you can understand that pretty much any situation you want is an effect or a culmination effect of multiple causes. And so understanding how cause and effect works is quite a cool thing. And I wanted to record this video just so that you can sort of have this model or framework, if you'd like, so that every new piece of information that you receive from me or anyone is filtered through this thing. Someone says, oh, you should like, what's an example? Someone's like, oh yeah, you should start, you should register, like for example, here in the UK, like you register for VAT when you're doing like £82,000 or more per year. But a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, register for VAT when you haven't even started a business yet. And then that's just stupid, because you don't need to register for VAT. And it's like, it's one of those 6-figure behaviors that you don't need to do. Like you need to do it to get to beyond that point, but you don't need to do it until that point. And if you do it, it's going to be a waste of money and you're going to have all this bullshit to deal with. But if you're starting, you don't really understand the difference, because all you are is blinded by authority, and you're misled by a lack of context, which is what happens with a lot of information. Okay, I'm trying to think of any other sort of like blatant examples that spring to mind here. I mean, like hiring a media buyer, for example, it's a big one. Like I see a lot of people get in and then the first thing they do is hire a media buyer. Like when it comes to hiring media buyers, if you're new, you want to treat media buyer hiring as a non-binary activity. You're managing a dichotomy between your understanding of the service and their understanding of the service. Because I understand why we hire media buyers to begin with. It's to leverage expertise, case studies, and have a sort of bit of faith that you're selling something that's actually okay. But what I see a lot of people do is they hire a media buyer and then they leave them to it. And they completely forget that service delivery is the lifeblood of the agency, aside from appointments. And ironically, appointments are actually produced by how good your service delivery is, because the better your service delivery is, the better the offer is. And so that's another one, like an action that you don't necessarily want to take to its full extreme in the beginning, is hiring a media buyer and forgetting about service delivery. It's okay to do that when you're doing 40 or 50K a month and you've got more important things to focus on. But when you're still starting out, like that activity just makes no sense because the context that it would be the right thing to do in does not exist, okay? So yeah, action brackets, they're really important. It's something that I wanted to record a video on for a long time, but it wasn't until a few things happened today that I was like, oh, this is actually relevant and I should probably make some people aware of this stuff. So just bear it in mind, okay? Whenever you receive a piece of advice, check it against these little brackets, think, where is this designed to take me? And you know, if you do know that you need to take a certain action to get to a certain point in your journey, like you want to get to 100K a month, and you know there's like hiring a team is going to be important to doing that, but it doesn't mean it's important to do it now, right? It's important to do it once you cross a certain threshold. Distinguishing between those points is damn important, okay? So that's everything for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If it's been useful, just put a like, click the like button. Also, what I'd like you to do, if you've left it, well, if you're still here at the end, just drop any comments below with other videos that you'd like to see me make, based on my experience building agencies, coaching businesses, and some other cool things, because yeah, I've got plenty of ideas for videos, but it'd be good to know what you guys want. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe. I'm not going to get you to turn that notification bell on because I don't want to distract you from your work. I think that'd be quite stupid. But yeah, I'll talk to you soon and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.